What do you expect when you hear a title like Warstorm? I don't know about you, but I expect a book with that kind of title to have lots of tension, action, excitement, especially if that book is the finale of a series that has spanned 3 years. Needless to say, I was very excited when I cracked open the pages of Victoria Aveyard's final book in the Red Queen series. However, it seems like this book has not only disappointed me as the finale of a quadrilogy, but has also disappointed me in almost every single aspect that makes a book entertaining. For a little bit of context, the series primarily follows the perspective of the main protagonist and our main special snowflake, Mare, who is the face of a revolution meant to overthrow the oppressive social order in the kingdom of Norda. In this Silvers, people who have silver blood, have special abilities and live in luxury, while Reds, normal human beings, are for the most part subject to poverty and maltreatment. They are also required to get a job by 18, or else they're conscripted to fight in an ongoing war between Norda and another kingdom, the Lakelands. Through events that aren't really that important, Mare discovers that she has lightning powers, even though she's red, which is obviously not supposed to happen. She gets in a love triangle between the two princes of Norda, Hal and Maven. Maven turns out to be evil, and revolutionary hijinks ensue. War, death, murder, yada yada yada. I specifically chose to do Warstorm because I believe it is the worst book in the entire series and therefore the easiest to talk about. So that's what's gonna happen today. Without further ado, let's talk about Warstorm, a long, drawn out disappointment. The first thing I noticed about this book is how large it is. This book is 657 pages long. For comparison, the third book is only 544 pages, 113 pages shorter than Warstorm. This on its own isn't that bad. It is the finale of the series. I would expect the book to be somewhat long. However, this novel has an ungodly amount of filler. Like, it's incredible. Nothing of any consequence happens until chapter 10, and the 168 pages up to that point were mostly spent talking. Not about anything important, mind you, or else I would have remembered it. They just talked about things that didn't matter. On top of that, the pacing of the book overall, not just in the beginning, is so slow. Every page feels like such a chore to read. This, in my opinion, is attributed to the book relying so much on the romantic subplot to generate drama. It always ends up more annoying than dramatic. I feel like a lot of the time the primary plot of the story takes a backseat to the frustrating, unentertaining side story. That's the reason that I didn't tell you much about the main storyline, because it really doesn't matter until about halfway through the book. In addition to that, the ending is also a massive letdown, but I'll save that till the end. Right now, I want to talk about the characters. Oh god, the characters. Iris is the second princess of the Lakelands and married to Maven. She is the one who provides the perspective from the other side of the war. To be honest though, most of her POVs are quite bland and simply aren't needed. I don't hate Iris, she's good to read in small doses, but she's given way too much spotlight, especially over characters like Cal or Maven. Another problem I have with her is her lack of depth. Her only thing is Lakelands good nor the bad. Victoria attempted to give her character by talking a little bit about her culture and the religion she practices, but it all, especially her religion, ends up being very vague and not fleshed out like at all. That aspect of Iris feels like it was just tacked on last minute. It didn't have much effort put into it at all. Why even include it if we're not going to think it through fully? She's overall just boring, bland, given way too much spotlight. Way too many chapters are dedicated to her. Now moving on to Maven. Maven is basically supposed to be the tyrannical boy king driven by obsession and madness, but the thing is, he was treated so terribly in this book. He was such a great antagonist, but was reduced to someone just waiting around until he eventually died. There are a lot of fans of the series who wanted to keep Maven alive and have him redeemed somehow, but it was very obvious that he was going to die at some point. Aveyard obviously favored Cal. My problem is that he didn't do much of anything besides brood. A lot of brooding. He becomes more active towards the end, but it doesn't even matter at that point because for like 95% of the book, he was just there. He only had a few POVs, which were again disappointing. They failed to give insight into his mind, thoughts, and feelings. I wish he had more chapters dedicated to him, maybe some taken from Iris's chapters, just a thought. He was simply not given enough spotlight, even though he's such an important character, which annoys me so freaking much. Evangeline was the only character I actually liked. She developed over the course of the book and the series. I hated her at first, absolutely hated her, but she slowly grew on me, which is nice. You rarely see that. Her character is the closest to a real person that you're gonna get in a book full of YA stereotypes. Every one of the main characters can be given just one trait. Like Mare is your special brat, Cal is the one who can't decide whether to go for the crown or go for the person he loves, Maven is the evil one, Iris is the overly patriotic one, and Evangeline is just Evangeline. We see an actual person with thoughts. Love that, really do. The only problem I have with her arc, which is pointed out by the YouTube channel Under the Cover in her review, is the fact that for the first 3 books, her romantic relationship with Elaine didn't seem to be that big of a deal. Everybody knew about it, nobody cared. But in this book, it's all of a sudden one of her main conflicts. 1 minute it's no problem. The next minute, it's gay bad. Gay very, very bad. But it doesn't work. It feels forced. It doesn't feel real, if that makes sense. It doesn't feel real. It feels very forced. It's annoying. Moving on. Moving on to Cal now. In this book, Cal is supposed to be the rightful king of Norda. However, the revolutionary forces he's working with, as well as Mare, obviously don't want a monarchy and want Cal to step down. For the majority of the book, he doesn't budge, which I respect, but then out of nowhere, he agrees to step down. There was no character development or anything that hinted that he was going to give up his crown in the first place. The book explains this away by saying he did it because he read something in his dead mom's journal, but I ain't buying it. Cal gave up his crown because Victoria Aveyard needed him to, not because it actually made sense for his character. It also doesn't help that he does this in the middle of a battle and Mare's just like, finally, and I'm just like, oh, so that's it. Then what was the point if it was all that easy? Why didn't you do that sooner? We could have just not wasted our time and all of this garbage slogging through all of this. If you could have just done it, it's so easy. Why didn't I don't like Cal. So annoying all the time. Now that I'm sufficiently upset, moving on to our main special snowflake, Mare. Mare is the main protagonist of the entire series, including this book. She is feisty, stubborn, special. Everybody's saying that. Everybody's saying that she's so special, but when you think about it for more than a millisecond, you quickly realize that Mare is nothing incredible. Her whole thing is that she's able to manipulate lightning, right? But in the second book, more people like her were introduced. So that cancels out what made her so special in the freaking first place. It's not even like she's the best at it either. They're all better than her, and I've been doing it for way longer. What you're left with is a conventional YA protagonist that's supposed to be some sort of beacon of hope. Meanwhile, she can't even decide if she wants to commit to a romantic relationship. Mare gets on my nerves so much. The majority of her POVs are spent just being a brat. Overall, she's boring and annoying to read. Especially from the 3rd book onward, she gets especially annoying. Like, oh my gosh. I'd rather the spotlight be given to literally anyone else in this book instead of having to sit through her acting like a special snowflake. The ending was what angered me the most. This book claims to be the, quote, epic conclusion to the series, but fails to provide the closure that it promised. In my opinion, the final fight between Mare and Maven was an extreme letdown, mainly because you never actually see Maven die. Mare passes out and is told later that he's dead. If you're gonna kill off the main antagonist of an entire series, it better be spectacular. Unfortunately, it wasn't, and I'm disappointed as usual. Also, another thing that happened in like the final battle, the one to end all battles, is that at the end, after spending this much time trading Maven in, they just turn around and go home. And I'm just like, oh, that's it. Oh, Okay, it was so anticlimactic. Another thing that was also terrible was a lack of closure when it came to Mare's arc. The epilogue only skipped to about a year later. I would have liked to see what happened further into the future. The ending is basically her saying that she needs to have some time for herself, discover who she is, all that jazz. You had 4 books to find yourself, and you're telling me you have no idea who you are after all of this? That might just be me being mean, but 4 entire books. The last part of this review is going to be spent nitpicking things that I hate, which I'm really excited about because I eat, sleep, and breathe complaining about things that don't really matter in the long run. So let's just start right off with the map. I don't know how maps should look, how fictional maps should look, but like this one in particular, I hate it. I really hate it. I really hate this map. First of all, the map is literally just like a version of the US that's just drawn differently. I can't explain to you how much I hate that because I've never seen a YA book that is not based on a US map. I'd love to see a map in any book that's based on just a different continent, a different country, just a different anything. But I just want to see a map that is not based on the US because it feels so unoriginal at this point, so lazy that I just can't. South America? What's that? Europe? Asia? Africa? Australia? Doesn't exist. Canada? What's Canada? The only place that exists is the US of A, the land of the free and the home of the terrible YA books. And they also forgot to label a key place in this map, which is the Rift. I looked everywhere on this map, but I can't find the Rift, which they probably should have included since it's such an important location. But that's just my opinion, of course. Just as a quick update, I think I found where the Rift was supposed to be. I'm not sure though, because it isn't labeled, but I think the Rift is supposed to be right here. I'm not sure, but it makes sense. It makes the most sense. Moving on. Another thing that also really bothered me are the grammatical errors as well as the word choice problems in this book. In terms of the grammatical errors, I started looking for them towards the end of the book, but I wasn't paying attention, so there probably could have been more. But the most glaring error that I found was when they called an area that's supposed to be called the Rift the Ridge twice and then switched back. The editors at HarperCollins are really doing their jobs, aren't they? In terms of the word choice errors, Victoria seems to be really fond of the words smirk, snarl, sneer, scoff, and then occasionally hiss. Every time a character talks, they are described as doing one of those 5 things. It gets old really fast. There's no variation when it comes to the dialogue. Like, it all feels very much the same, to the point where they all just kind of blend together, and anything important that's getting said just doesn't register because of that. In conclusion, is Warstorm the worst thing ever? No, don't get me wrong, the book is bad, very bad, but I've definitely heard of worse. My problem comes with the fact that the book is so boring, especially for one that was hyped up to be this incredible banger of an ending. The book is ultimately nothing. You really feel every single one of those pages go by. This is the sort of book that you read and then forget about as soon as you finish the last page. It had no impact. We were promised a storm, but in the end, all we got was a light drizzle.